Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for just taking a few minutes this morning for our devotional as we go into Hebrews. Today, we're actually looking at Hebrews chapter 11. As we've been going through Hebrews, it's been such a cool time just to look into each one of these and dig into them. Today, we're going to dig into this chapter. I'll give you the overall view of the chapter and then what it entails, and then maybe dig into a couple of things and give you maybe just a couple of questions at the end to kind of help us jump into the next place of what's next for us. How do we take that next step? Chapter 11 is all about faith. As you jump into chapter 11, you start reading, it's going on and on about Noah building an ark, about Moses, about Abraham, it goes on and on of listing these names of people who had these great things of faith and great faith stories of things that they had done. In the middle of it, as you're reading down, just really quick, right into the beginning, this verse pops out, and I found it incredibly interesting. It's at verse 6, and it says, "It is impossible to please God without faith. Anyone who wants to come to him must believe that God exists and that he rewards those who sincerely seek him." Now, man, when we talk about faith, a lot of people have a lot of ideas of what faith looks like, how that looks lived out, how that looks played out in our day-to-day lives. Faith, it ultimately is believing in the promises that God has set out for us in his word. Having the idea and the thought to say, I'm going to believe in that, put my faith that God is going to deliver in the things that he said he was going to deliver for me. I had a story of one time me and some friends had the idea. We were doing some ministry with homeless people in Atlanta. So we had this idea that we were going to ask everyone in the church to bring their favorite article of clothing, whatever that may be. We wanted the people in the church to kind of get the idea of a sacrifice. So we're going to take this. We told people we're going to take your favorite article of clothing, we're going to wrap it up, and then we're going to take it to Atlanta and we're going to give it to a homeless person. So we had this idea. We were going to feed people, give gifts away, give things away as we did this project. So we go down, we had no idea. We were in our early 20s and we were just trying to figure out our faith as it lies, in the same sense of we're just trying to live it out and do. We're like, hey, we know this is a need. We're going to try to meet this need. So we go down to Atlanta, it was Techwood at the time. Now it's Olympic Park. And so we're down there and we pull this truck down with a grill. We had a friend of ours who provided all these hot dogs and hamburgers and all the accessories and everything that goes with those. And we're just going to start feeding people and handing out gifts. So we started doing that. This was right around Thanksgiving when we did this. Well, it kind of escalated very quickly. Again, us being young and having no idea, we're just like, we're going to go do this thing and it's going to be awesome. God's going to show up. We had no idea what that even meant or what that even looked like, but we're there and we see that there's about 300-400 people in line. Well, we're about to run out of hamburgers and hot dogs. So the guys come up to me and they're like, man, what are we going to do? We're about to run out of food. There's 300-400 people standing in line here. We're in the middle of Techwood. What are we going to do? I remember just trying to act like I had this all figured out, which as Christians, we do so many times. We try to act like, oh, we'll just fake it until we make it kind of idea. And I was like, you know what? We're just going to pray and trust God. Well, because that's all I knew what to do. So we circled up. And I remember that night we're just serving. I was like, let's grab hands. And my prayer was short and simple and to the point. God, we're running out of food and we need food. And there's people here who we said we were going to feed. Bring us food. Amen. I remember as soon as I said amen, I look up and over the hill come these 3 white vans. It's just so crazy. Like these 3 white vans come pulling up and I go out to see, and the guy opens the door and he goes, man, crazy story, crazy thing. I had this event planned where we were going to have all this food. We have Thanksgiving dinners. We have turkey. We have dressing. We have all the fixings, all the sides. Thing got canceled. Something happened, blah, blah, blah. I can't remember what it is. He goes, I have all this food. I happen to see you down here feeding people. Do you want the food? And man, they start unloading this food out of the back of these vans and setting them on the tables that we had. And I can remember that day was the day my faith actually took a next step. And I was like, okay, God, You're seeing what we're doing. You're hearing. You're a part of our lives more than I ever knew. And God was waiting for us to take that step, that next part, for us to go, okay, you're here. Now trust me and let me show up and do my thing. And my faith changed that day. That God could do so much more than I ever thought of. And it was one of those moments to look at and go, okay, I'm going to, my faith and my trust grew more that day than it ever had in my life as a Christian. But as we look at Hebrews, we see stories of people like Noah. I mean, we look past this sometimes. Noah was called to build an ark because it was going to flood, but it hadn't rained. People thought he was crazy. He did that on faith. When Moses led the people out of Egypt, that was on faith. They crossed the Red Sea on dry land on faith. The people who follow him, not so much luck. So there's something interesting about faith when it's put to action, looks completely different. Because we say this, like we read stories throughout the Bible completely of the friends who carried their paralyzed man to Jesus, and they couldn't get to him, and they tear the roof off and they lower him down, and Jesus makes a statement. He says, because of your faith, he's healed. So faith is awesome, and we have that to seek him, after him, but there's action involved with that, because there has to be a yes to God when the faith is there. So many of us have those opportunities every day. A lot of times we don't take advantage of those things. Sometimes we feel God calling us to do something. We feel God prompting us to take a next step, to put that faith in action. And so many times we just say no. And that faith could be as simple as stop and talk to this person. Stop and ask them how they're doing. Another quick story. I won't fill with stories, but I had this opportunity one time when I was traveling. It's through Alabama. We get out of the cars. Me and a bunch of guys were going to some conference. But I remember I was walking by this guy, and it was crazy. It felt, I had this thing inside of me. I was like, talk to this guy. He's sitting on the curb. He was a good looking guy. He's a decent looking fella. And so he said, stop and talk to this guy. So I did. I sat down and I said, hey man. No, actually I didn't. I walked in the store, got what I needed. I come back out. He's still sitting there. I was like, if he's still there, we make these promises, God, if he's still there, then I'll do that then. And so I had that. I came back out. The guy is still sitting on the curb. I was like, all right, God, here we go. And I sat down beside him. I was like, hey man, how you doing? And he looked at me and he goes, I was just talking to God and asked him if he was real, he would send somebody to come talk to me. And he proceeded to tell me that he had just taken a gun from his father-in-law's house and was going to a park to commit suicide. And he was looking for God to show up and show him that somebody was real. And there's nothing special about what I did. All I said was yes to God and put my faith in action. And when I did, God showed up and did his thing. I wound up sharing the gospel with this guy, prayed with him. I think I actually gave him a Bible, one of the other guys' Bibles that we had, and told him that I would pray for him. I remember that to this day. What if, Riverbend, what if we of Riverbend and Gainesville put our faith in action? When God calls us to do something, we said yes. That our yes is on the table, as Joe has talked to us before, that my yes is on the table. So whatever God calls me to do, that's going to be what I go for. That's going to be it. Because there's so many times that we're going to have opportunities to say yes to him, but a lot of times we say no because we're scared. You can't tell me that Noah wasn't scared. You can't tell me that Abraham wasn't scared to death when he took his son Isaac up to the altar. But he was doing that by faith because God had told him to. You can't tell me Moses wasn't scared to death. He was just trying to figure it out. Every fear is okay. But God says, hey, trust me, have faith. So my question to you today is this. When you read through Hebrews chapter 11 and you think about the faith stories and you hear them time and time and time again, think about, what's my yes to God? What's my next step of faith? Wherever it may be in my workplace, maybe God's calling you to a next step, and whatever that may look like. of just stepping out in our faith and trusting Him, trusting the promises that He's made for us to do. So, simple question. What's my next step of faith in my spiritual journey? What's God calling me to that next to do? It doesn't have to be huge. It can be small. It can be sitting down to say, hey, how are you doing? What's going on? How's life treating you? Sending a text to a friend or someone you have. Just listening to the God prompts through His Word, through worship, just just listen to what God has, and then say yes and take that step. That's the hardest part. You have to pair the action with the faith to see the results. So today, I challenge you. Look for those opportunities. And I look forward to hearing those incredible stories that you guys have. Awesome. Thank you for joining, and have an awesome day.